often start videos on Hammers Chat by saying, after a game, we're just reviewing the game. We're just reviewing the game now. And there's a very good reason for that. Gio did it yesterday in his post-match review. And that is because, I mean, social media can sometimes be so volatile that people can often extrapolate, maybe quote mine what you're saying and then blow it up. So you might say that a certain player has had a bad game, and then it can sort of be respun that you want him to be sold or something like that. So you try and keep the comments localised and to the game itself. I think it's hard to do that after the Chelsea game because Lopetegui is immediately under pressure, which is crazy given that he's not been in the job for 5 minutes. So it's very hard to describe what happened, localise it to the Chelsea game without factoring in what we've seen so far in what really is a very, very early career for him. Statistics like West Ham have never lost their first 3 home games in the season don't help because they had headlines to the fire as much as anything else. And it's something Gio mentioned this morning, talking about the media. It's something that the media will sort of pile on with. But I think you do have to start trying to look at what's going on at West Ham. And even if you're not looking to undermine Lopetegui, even if you're looking for signs that you want Lopetegui, maybe you're a Lopetegui fan, maybe Lopetegui was your choice, you're still going to look at the team and look for signs that things are getting better. And I think one of the reasons he may well come under pressure is because there doesn't seem to be any of that. It's a really interesting. I say interesting. It's not interesting at all. It's a pretty grim time now to be a West Ham fan because you've got a fan base which is starting to become divided. We've seen it plenty of times before. You've got a blame game going on, and then you've got a media who, as Gio alluded to earlier on, they're sharpening their knives. They've been almost waiting for this to happen because they're very, what should we say, they're very David Moyes friendly, the media, for reasons that we've discussed in the past. And I think they're almost waiting for West Ham to fail so as they can say, I told you so. And this all feeds into a lot of negativity. It doesn't help the situation and certainly doesn't help us as fans to almost give him a clean slate. As in many respects, everyone deserves a clean slate. You hear it from managers often say it. Everyone starts with a clean slate. And really, as fans, I guess a new manager should start with a clean slate. It's really, really hard given all the noise that's sort of going around, and particularly bearing in mind the reasoning for David Moyes leaving. Everyone's got their own reasons, but I think even if you wanted Moyes to stay, and even if maybe you had different reasons, you would at least concede that a lot of people's reasoning for David Moyes leaving was that the football wasn't particularly entertaining, and that we were shipping a lot of goals. That would be fair to say. There's lots more to it, and there's lots of other reasons. So I think when you go and replace someone for certain reasons, then the person you replaced them with, you're looking for something different. And obviously there's a situation now where actually the football doesn't look great, and we're losing. Now we started conceding goals, which didn't happen in the first. I know we conceded 3 against Manchester City, but it looked like quite possibly defence was getting better from last season. But I think it's important to remind everybody, last season was a record number of goals conceded in the Premier League for West Ham, 74. It now looks like we could possibly, be a very, very bad team defensively. The organisation is absolutely atrocious. So you've got all this stuff as a backdrop going on, which is what I think is putting a lot of pressure immediately on Lopetegui. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I knew that Lopetegui was going to start the season poorly. I couldn't, honestly, I wouldn't suggest that at all. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen. I certainly think as he started to get into the job, I started to hope for the best. What I did know that was going to happen was the media piling in. That I knew. That I knew would happen. If it didn't work out, the media would pile in. And also, a load of other people would pile in, because you are definitely seeing on social media West Ham fans pitted against West Ham fans, and certainly people that wanted David Moyes to leave are getting a lot of stick and getting a lot of abuse for, I think, for the performance yesterday. And I think it just feeds into this mass West Ham frustration that there is now. That certainly was predictable. All this stuff would have happened. And that's why, because I've seen it happen before, by the way, that's why it was really important that at every opportunity we turned around on Hammers Chat just to say, look, this is not, Lopetegui is not our choice. You know, he's not. We knew this would happen. We knew not necessarily that it would be spun as our choice, although that certainly happened with Manuel Pellegrini, but that the be careful what you wish for brigade would turn round and they would say, there you go, that's what you get. That's what you get. Because I think for a lot of us, particularly people that are more educated on Lopetegui than I am, there was a caution. People were saying, well, hold on a second. This guy may be not so different from David Moyes. And I think that's it. I think that is the very kernel, the very husk of what we were wishing for, which was something a little bit different and a little bit better. It's an easy throwaway line, be careful what you wish for. And I think that's just going to feed into more and more anger, I think, particularly between the West Ham fans amongst themselves and, of course, the media looking in on West Ham. It started even before the game. I mean, you know, Chris Sutton immediately started loading his bullets before the start of this weekend. David Moyes, as you know, David Moyes went and did the Be In Sports programme with Andy Gray and Richard Keys. We all know that they're big fans of David Moyes, and they were basically waiting for West Ham to lose. We know what he thinks. Richard Keys has called Tim Stuyton a sneaky weasel. They don't like it. They're very, very pro David Moyes. Then David Moyes on TV, which has been clipped. You would have seen it by now. There's no way you could have avoided it. David Moyes has sat there and he said, well, we had a really good record at the London Stadium against Chelsea, which he did. Let's just say that. He's not lying at all. What it does do, it heaps even more pressure on Julen Lopetegui, because make no mistake about it, it suits David Moyes, it suits Richard Keys, it suits Andy Gray, it suits Alan Shearer, it suits Paul Merson, it suits Jeff Stelling, it suits Chris Sutton. I could go on and on and on and on if Lopetegui fails, because it makes David Moyes look good. And but what it does do, it makes it incredibly fractious with the West Ham fan base. And I think it is almost like it's creating a little civil war almost immediately. And I'm absolutely gutted. I cannot believe that we are in this situation. It is early in the season, and I noticed that Lopetegui's mate, Guillaume Balaguer, had come out in defence of him last night. We knew that was going to happen. He did it very much at Wolves. And I feel sorry for him. I actually do feel sorry for Lopetegui, because he was completely outsmarted in the game against Chelsea. Completely outsmarted. Went to the game, came back, watched. I watched almost all of it, and obviously I've been to the game, watched almost all of it on playback, and then the boxing was on. So when I did something else, I may continue to watch the rest of it today. I sort of don't need to. I saw enough in what I watched to confirm what I thought I'd seen yesterday. It's always different watching a game. You've got replays, and obviously, just in case you don't know this, just in case you don't go to the games, they don't replay the opposition goals. So in the stadium, they'll replay the goals that you see, but they won't replay the opposition goals. So you don't always get the ability to maybe analyse what went wrong. It's such a big stadium. You're so far from the pitch. It's hard, particularly if it's down the other end of the pitch, to know exactly what went on. So, you know, people are scrambling around for their phones and trying to find, you know, clipped bits and you know, WhatsApp messages and whatnot to find out what happened. However, I think having watched it back, there was nothing that particularly surprised me. What was really evident, both, particularly in the stadium, and maybe this is the bit that I was going to get to at the end, was that became a training match for Chelsea. Not just that, it's a little bit more damning than that. I feel Chelsea started their warm down during the game, and we were lucky. We were lucky that Chelsea, quite early on in that game, and I mean possibly as early as about 60 minutes, decided to turn their attentions to the next game, whatever it might be. Started making substitutions. They turned down the dial. They turned down the intensity dial. They saved some legs, and that's a really, really bad look for West Ham, and that's a really bad look for Lopetegui, who was angry, really angry. There's no doubt about that at all. Jared Bowen's post-match press conference, which should be easier to say than that, was quite telling. He spoke of a lack of intensity, mentality. Commitment, why West Ham weren't doing the little fouls, the small stuff. He was talking about the small stuff that you should really be doing as a basic, just to, I think his term was, make the opposition team know that they're playing in West Ham Stadium at home, Make them know that they're away, they're playing away from home. Didn't do any of that. It's his job as captain. He's got a. I'm pleased he came out and he was honest, and he's got a job on his hand as captain, and I do hope he hasn't been given a poison chalice with it, really. Lopetegui's going to have to sort something out, and he's going to have to do it really, really quickly, because I don't particularly want to factor in the Liverpool game, although losing that would not help. But losing the next league game puts him under the sort of pressure that he probably shouldn't be under, or any manager should be under, so early in their career. It puts him in a sort of position. Look, West Ham didn't spend 100-odd million and change the manager to stay where we are. We did it to move forward. And there's a lot of comparisons being made with West Ham start last season, which was decent. So he's being compared with Moyes there, and which is fine. I've got to say, from Christmas onwards, West Ham were bloody awful. So, the comparison is unfavourable. But he doesn't get a clean sheet. He does a clean slate. He doesn't get to have his Christmas to January to February to March record compared against Moyes, because if it carries on like this, it's going to be very, very hard for him to get there. And this would be terrible for West Ham, because it starts to make us a bit of a laughing stock. It does. There's no doubt about it at all. And Gio was alluding to sort of false reporting from the media earlier on. And I've seen it. I have already seen it with this on one of the podcasts, one of the BBC podcasts. West Ham fans would demand. He spun it that West Ham fans were demanding for Lopetegui to come in. Demanding. We're very vocal on the airwaves. Get rid of David Moyes and bring Lopetegui in. It's already been twisted, and I knew it would happen. If you watch his channel, if you've been watching his channel for any length of time, I told you that would happen. I knew it would be twisted. Absolutely knew it. And it's one thing to be held accountable for something you've said and you might have got wrong. Right? That's fair enough. All right, if you get something wrong and someone says, you said this, you think, hold on, all right, fair enough. But I think there's a fan base, if you're getting accused of something that actually you didn't do, by a mainstream media who have already shown last season that they're not particularly keen on West Ham. And it's weird if, West Ham seems to have gone from, certainly in my lifetime, being everyone's second. People say, West Ham, they're my second team, my second favourite team. I think it started to switch with the Tevez stuff, but by and large, West Ham are quite unpopular now, and I think there's certainly a case with the media where they can't wait to put the boot in. He's under massive pressure. He's under massive pressure, and more pressure than he should be on, because, as I say, he's carrying the weight. He's carrying the weight of last season. He's carrying the weight of the reasoning for David Moyes' dismissal, which I guess every manager is if they've replaced somebody. But he's also carrying the weight for this sort of media war against West Ham fans, and this civil war that seems to be brewing online between people that wanted Moyes to remain and see the people that wanted Moyes to leave as the reasons for Lopetegui's poor start. And there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of nastiness, and the sort of thing that that makes you leave, and makes you not want to look at social media, not look at the comments on YouTube, not look at anything, because it can get pretty nasty. We need a win. Lopetegui needs a win for everyone, himself included, and I really want him to get it. This is not good for anyone. It really isn't. I don't want this massive gaping holes in the defence. Look, we'll discuss the individual players in more detail on Patreon player ratings tomorrow. If you want to watch that, by the way, if you want to go and watch Patreon player ratings, but you're not sure whether to commit to Hammers Chat Patreon, it's basically our third YouTube channel, and it's a subscription service basically, which allows us to upload every day on YouTube. On this, basically, it's a free video, and it allows us to upload on that alongside our wonderful sponsors. If you're not sure whether you want to pay a subscription for Hammers Chat Patreon at the moment, we've got a 7-day free trial. Go and check that out, and it will at least allow you to watch the player ratings tomorrow. We'll go into more detail on the players and the tactics. We've got a stat attack as well, because we've got some pretty cool scouting software as well at the moment. So we'll take a deep dive, as they say, into the statistics and possibly where it went wrong in the game. But I don't want, as a fan, as a supporter, I want him to get it right. I don't want to see the situation where Alvarez was in the sort of positions where he was in. I think he's a fine player. Alvarez is a really good player. Just wouldn't be asking him to do that. There were times during that game when Alvarez was almost like the last man standing in defence, and Wan-Bissaka and Mavropanos were so far forward they were almost shopping in Westfield. It was. I don't want to see that. I want him to sort it out. It's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. And I didn't. Well, actually, I didn't. I was going to say I didn't watch a match of the day for that reason. The truth of the matter is, I didn't watch a match of the day because I was watching boxing. But I would have avoided it anyway because I wouldn't have fancied watching that being dissected by pundits who were. A lot of them, wanting West Ham to fail. So, yes, it's a bit crap at the moment. It's a bit civil warish, a manager under pressure, a bit conspiratorial, all that stuff, all the stuff that I actually hate. And we all thought it was going to be so much better. We really did. Anyway, look, as I say, we'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our player ratings. I think we're going player ratings. We're doing it at 9:45 over on Patreon tomorrow. We're going to be dissecting it a lot more. There's a lot to get through. It's so weird. It goes from being, international break where there's sort of nothing going on at West Ham. And, we asked you guys, oh, can you give us suggestions through videos and stuff like that, to a point now where it's almost like West Ham circus time again. And, there's just so much going on, so much to discuss, and not in a good way, it's just not positive at all. It's not. Just amazing how quickly it's turned. Lopetegui's got nowhere near. I think my point is Lopetegui's got nowhere near as much time as a manager normally would have. He's been given the type of support that was demanded. Basically, forced him. The lack of that support forced him to leave Wolverhampton Wanderers. He's had it here. He's got the players. A lot of them. They weren't not all Stighton signings either. A lot of these guys. He's got 3 or 4 of them that certainly Lopetegui asked for. We spent big money. Stighton can't do any more. The club can't sign any more checks. It's the transfer window's shut. It's now just down to his coaching that and his man management. That's it. There's so much pressure on him. Anyway, there you go. Right, I'm going to. Do you know what? I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to try and forget about West Ham for the rest of the day. Watch the Grand Prix or something like that. Go shopping, that sort of thing. We'll catch up with you tomorrow morning, hopefully on Patreon. It's, by the way, the link's in the description below. It's patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Or if you can't be asked to do that, just Google Hammers Chat Patreon and you'll find it.